air it out and then it didn't air it out. Yay. Welcome to Teach Jenn Tech, where we break down tech barriers to make it accessible and have super duper cool guests on, like Josh, who wrote a book called Learning TypeScript and does cool things. And we have a fun series about learning TypeScript. This is chapter 7. I'm actually, I like that we haven't streamed for like 2 months. And I'm like, we're this might take us like 2 years to get through the book.
Yeah. I mean, we're getting through it, honestly. It's happening.
We are, and I love it. But hello, everyone. My name is Jen, host of Teach Jenn Tech, and this is Josh, as I said, the author of Learning TypeScript. But you also do a lot of other things. And what have you been up to? I haven't asked you conferences or what you've been doing lately.
Yeah. It's been a little while. I've been a little calmer the last few months. I think my most recent conference was Seattle JS Conf, which was fantastic and wonderful. I'm actually going to a wedding in France, leaving tomorrow over the weekend. Real excited about that.
Yay!
Shout out Nod and Remy. But yeah, no, got a busy year. I think you and I are sharing a conference pretty soon. TS Congress coming up later this month, right?
I'm actually at a conference. Well, I'm at that conference. Because for those who don't know, TS Congress, TypeScript Congress is a virtual conference, and you should join. It's going to be fun. We're talking, and so is Daniel Rowe, which I like hardcore fangirled. I was like, I'm actually talking at a conference that he's what? That was mind-blowing.
Awesome.
And yes, it's also weird to think that I'm actually going to be at a conference that you're talking at too.
I'm not talking at the conference. I'm just hosting like a Q&A or two.
Yeah, but still, you're you. And really quick, before I forget, Nate, I've been meaning to reach out to you because you need to come on the show. And my spaciness has not reached out. So while I see your name, I need to tell you that. So thank you for the pause. Anthony just got married.
Congrats, Anthony! Woo!
I'm really excited. I wish I could have made the wedding. Oh, it looked so beautiful. I saw photos and I'm just so excited. I love his new wife. Well, his fiance. I love now new wife. Is that? Anyway, she's amazing.
Grammatically speaking, I think what you're saying is reasonable.
Yes. And anything else you've been up to?
I've actually been working on a fun project called Create TypeScript App, formerly Template TypeScript Node Package. You can see why I renamed it the Create TypeScript App. It's like a good getting started thing for TypeScript repos. It sets up all the linting and building and testing and coverage and all contributors and everything that you could possibly want in a generic TypeScript repo. And that's I learned a term yesterday, Preptember. So like September preparing for
Hacktoberfest. Yes. Yeah. I need to reach out to Brian, see if he wants to be on the show for Preptember.
Yeah.
It's
a good idea. Yeah. Love Brian. Yeah, I'm rolling out Create TypeScript App for all my repos, and it's got like a bunch of like repo automations and documentation and stuff to make it easier for people to contribute. So I'm pretty excited.
Yay! And what up, Roy? Yes. Roy, I think you'll be very excited about this news as well. Since something for everyone that doesn't know, I am part of the OSRG Raid Guild, Open Source Raid Guild. Yeah, there we go. It's where I currently hang out, and it's super fun. And all my friends there are all huge TypeScript fanatics, and also are like, Jen, you do a lot of the theory stuff. You don't actually code enough. I'm like, okay. So Roy has been helping me learn how to get unstuck on certain things and building what I want when I have the time to do it. And I think he will be very excited to hear that I am going to go through and do all of the chapter assignments that from Josh's book as well to learn too.
Awesome.
Because we haven't done the assignments, which I get because of time, but also like we should. And yes, Nate.
Yeah, I just found a bunch of good first issues on it. So have at it.
Yay. Do you want to tell us a bit more about Preptember so that way people are prepped and ready to go contribute?
Yeah. I just learned the word like this week, but in general, Hacktoberfest is a yearly celebration of open source, sponsored by some big companies in open source. I always forget who's doing it. DigitalOcean, I think, was the thing. Maybe get up. Anyway, the idea is if you get a certain number of merged pull requests, so code contributions, or rather, sorry, not code, contributions such as code or documentation to open source projects in the month of October. I think it's like 5 is the threshold. You get a free shirt, or you get to plant a tree. Is the new this year's website up?
Yeah, it's presented by DigitalOcean iLaCloud. How do you? I don't know how to say that in app right.
Oh,
I feel like I was at Cloud Next last week, and they're doing cool things with AppRight, with Google Cloud Next, and they did some cool announcements. And also, we followed each other on Twitter that there's a new DevRel there that I should make friends with and see if they want to come talk about Hacktoberfest.
Cool.
We'll do.
I was talking to one of their DevRels, Tessa, who's really cool. Shout out.
Oh, I don't know if like
they were
Tessa. Oh, that's so cool.
Shit, if I got the name wrong, that's embarrassing. No, it's Tessa. Anyway, yeah, no, that's really cool. Thanks for. I forgot to check. I didn't even think to check. Like, oh yeah, hacktoberfest.com. It's September. They probably have that up. So yeah, it's really excited. Anyone who's interested in like getting into open source, whether you've never done it before or like you've tried but like never really contributed to anyone else's library, there are a lot of great tools that people will talk about for finding like what's called a good first issue, something that's welcoming and friendly for someone who might not be like super experienced, which I think is really exciting. I like the idea of Preptember. This is kind of a new thing where when they first rolled out Hacktoberfest, it was just any repo anywhere, go contribute, and that was chaos because not everyone was ready to receive contributors. So now we're prepping maintainers such as myself to make sure that our repos are ready. We've got dev documentation, we've got getting started guides, we've got good first issues, all that good stuff.
And one that I am very excited about, that I mentioned about B. Dougie coming on the show. I think I'm also partial to it because Ben Myers helped me figure out how to commit it, but I did my first PR with open source, so it has a special place in my heart.
That's awesome.
And yes, got to make 5 PRs with the most minor doc fixes ever. One thing that to make sure to mention that I'm mentioning, want to remember, is you want to get these done as soon as possible because there's a lot of shirts, but not as many shirts as we may want.
Yep.
I didn't get a shirt last year, but I did get the cool hologram thing on my GitHub.
I think I definitely did a tree last year. I've got too many dang shirts of these.
Yeah, there are. I mean, for some people, the shirts, I just really wanted one last year for my first year. Now that it's my second year, I'm like, that could be cool. That could be cool. Let's see. Y'all, we're going to hopefully not share like too much of my screen today. Let's see it. Share. Hey.
Here it is.
This is my GitHub. And it does, you get your achievements. I think there's achievement here too. Oh, hey, I'm a sponsor. Let's quick draw. That's cool.
Thanks.
I'm like, I don't even know what all of these are. This is fun. But I was going for the AppRight, this participant, and these two. It's from last year. Very exciting stuff. But I know that everybody joined to like hang out with us and hear what we're up to, and that is some of the fun. But we actually also have what we've been learning and your book. So please tell us about what your book is and what we've been going through on this. I feel like you're a good explainer. I was going to say explanation. You're a good explanation.
Explanator. Yes, learning TypeScript. Enhance your web development skills using TypeScript JavaScript. It's a book that I wrote, published with O'Reilly, by. it takes you from, I just know JavaScript, or in Jenn's case, I haven't coded in JavaScript before, to TypeScript. So what is TypeScript? Why do we like it? How does its stuff work? Like the type system. What is a type system? How does that work? And then all the most common features that most developers are using in TypeScript, like interfaces, arrays, tuples, functions, type narrowing, unions. A lot of good stuff in there.
Yes, and this was something that was fun on that we started with, is the fact that Josh and I met when I'm still learning JavaScript. If you ask Roy, I still don't know the differences of all of them. It's like I can figure stuff out, I just don't always know their names, which is currently what I'm working through. And I promise, Roy, I will reply on what I'm supposed to be replying on. But we are on chapter 7, interfaces, which is kind of crazy that we've made it this far, but then also that it's taken us this long to get here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which.
I think we're at the bell curve of information where like we are now hitting the point where like you could get to most TypeScript code bases and be generally fine. Like there are no major new things we're introducing.
That's fair. And I see that a lot more in so we have the book. I am sharing my iPad in case anybody's curious how I'm doing this. And this is a big reason why when I was asking about like external monitors, a lot of people were like, just use your iPad. I'm like, I can't use my iPad because I do things on my iPad when I stream. So, but I do believe I have to. There's a pointer. Okay, that was fun.
Whee!
Let's do the grade. So going through it, something we've done in the past is going to this summary, which I will get there. I did not get through the entire chapter this time because I personally am working on catching up with Josh. If y'all didn't know, Josh does like conferences and live streams and creates cool new things and is always busy and somehow balanced. And I'm like, I did a conference last week and I had a 4 a.m. call yesterday, and I'm just like, I will get there. I will get there. It's getting better.
You got this.
Yes. Okay, so the summary. We talked about using interfaces instead of type aliases to declare object types. That one part mostly made sense. I like the references in them. Various interface property types, optional read-only, function, and method. Also mostly made sense, at least for me. And then where I didn't get is apparently the second half of the chapter, which is awesome, of using index signatures for catch-all object properties, reusing interfaces, and using nested interfaces extends inheritance. That's just a hard sentence to say. And how interfaces with some same name can merge together. Wow. And hello. I was so excited. I caught some of Parasocial's stream yesterday, and I realized that Parasocial, I feel like you kind of stream like Theo. You make your videos as you stream, which is smart. I use it as a talk show, I feel like, where I'm like, I get to talk to everybody, and it's hard to clip things. We'll get there. It is all learning. Yeah. Outside of this, and I'm curious while I'm looking at the summary, what was the idea behind this chapter, or why is this chapter so important in our building blocks?
Yeah, a couple of reasons. One, the least important, is that every programming language has its like equivalent of tabs versus spaces. And in TypeScript, I think the biggest one is types versus interfaces, using object type aliases versus interfaces. So now that you've read this chapter, you can engage in that discussion by screaming on Twitter about it. There are small differences. They don't really matter most of the time. The real juice in this chapter, though, I think, is that it introduces a lot of concepts around how to declare more rich object shapes, whether it's with type aliases or interfaces. Things like that second list item, optional read-only, function versus method properties. So now you're not just writing code and then like writing little shapes in the type system to describe it, you're like getting more deep into the type system. You're really getting used to like describing rich stuff in there and thinking of the type system as a major part of your code. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, and it does make sense, and something that we're gonna scroll all the way back up to the chapter, beginning of the chapter, maybe keep going. Is something that I really liked about the beginning of this chapter is I have to find where I put it or where it is. I know that I highlighted it, but the fact that it makes it faster to read as well when you're using interfaces instead. And I was like, that was interesting to me because I did highlight it. It's these 2 points right here. It's speedier for the TypeScript checker. And I was like, that's interesting to think about how fast it takes to go through all that and generate.
Yeah, I will note that that's less of a concern this year than it was when I was writing the book. They're constantly doing perf improvements in TypeScript. So I can't remember the last time I had to switch from type to interface for perf performance. But I know there are cases when that still happens. I just don't remember what they are, their edge. But yeah, it's really cool. And actually, there's a really good talk, and I'll link in the chat from Alexandra Sikora on TypeScript performance that
interesting.
has been floating around. Let's see. What was that? Oh yeah, BEJS, JS, and that's really good. I don't remember if that's what Alexandra was speaking on at TypeScript Congress, actually. But another shout out there.
Yay. And I did like this example, and I highlighted it because that's how my brain works, is making sure that there's different colors to pop out. That you call out that the syntaxes are so similar. And like for this example of the type aliases versus interfaces, it's the actual, like the semicolon. Wow. Took a second to figure out. I'm like, that symbol right there, the one. And I feel like that's something that I was like, oh, it's not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. And not as, I feel like it's not going to be as many names as like something like the how to say it, like all of the things that like event streaming has. They have logs. They have so many names for the stupid stuff.
Oh yeah.
And
TypeScript's actually not that big.
Yeah. So I'm like, yay, there's not going to be a million names about the same thing. And I'm very excited about that. And cool. And did we want to take a quick look at her talk, or just make sure that we all go watch it later?
I would suggest to watch it later. It goes deep. It's really cool.
Yay, I'm excited. I always love to see new resources. All right. So, into each of these. Wait. Roy said they don't think that they've seen that reference.
Yeah. So the phrasing here, I'm actually kind of proud of, and I'm gonna hone in on the little gecko squirrel. Within the spectrum of TypeScript developers who do prefer semicolons, myself included, we do put them after object type aliases because it is analogous to declaring a variable or declaring a thing. So it's type x equals whatever, semicolon. If you don't use semicolons, then you don't need a semicolon there. It's the same. But an interface is more of a declaration rather than a statement, which is two very nitpicky terms that are often used interchangeably. But like within the language design, like referring to the different technical terms for all these things. There is like an actual difference between the two. Sparkle emoji.
I did put kind of sparkle emojis on the graphic. So
yay.
That is, I updated our graphic. We'll figure out graphics at some point in the YouTube hacks. And oh my gosh, so much there. So excuse my dog, if you can hear her. We'll mute real quick. Maybe.
Woof.
She's hard of hear, like she can't hear anymore. So even if I were to like yell at her, she can't hear me. So it's more of just wait it out. And I really like that in this chapter so far, like you're referencing back to a lot of items that we've already talked about or where we will talk about it. Like this one's, as we'll see in the next chapter, there's a reference to chapter 13 coming up as well. And I was like, okay, cool. As I want to learn more information, I know where to go for it. And I really appreciate that. Something that, and this one I feel like was more of a for myself than for everybody else on the highlights of the differences between interfaces and type aliases were just to remember that that what we're doing for the rest of the chapter in this book is going to be based on interfaces in these 2 bullet points. More of like a point of reference for myself. But, y'all, I'm doing a talk at TypeScript Congress, and I'm going to use this quote. At least maybe like the last sentence. TypeScript provides a set of
types.
Yes. You do it. I'll clip it. You do it.
I thought we were doing it in unison.
I'm not that,
like a
I
cult
don't know.
situation.
Okay, well, TypeScript
provides a set of
type system tools
for
interfaces to help us model the wackiness.
That was great. Love it.
That is going in the talk. Just as a heads up, it's going to be amazing.
Great.
This is, and one of the reasons I really like that is because with the talk, I'm talking about learning live and how learning TypeScript and learning, especially with having Josh on the show consistently and having the consistency has helped build more structure in my learning as well. And in my code as I'm learning all of it because I'm learning TypeScript and JavaScript at the same time. It's fun. Although I don't always know the differences that something is TypeScript and not JavaScript. It makes it fun. All right. Optional properties. This made a lot of sense to me. Anything that if I explain, see if I can, wait, what?
So there's actually a typo on the page, like a pretty glaring typo in this code snippet, which has been bugging me. The error message says that property author is missing in type. Missing, I flipped it somewhere in the editing between pages and author. So this sample is fine. Pages is required, author is optional. So this sample is just wrong.
Okay. I was just going to say because of the question mark, it's just saying that it's optional.
Yeah. So const missing book is totally fine because it has pages, which is required, and it doesn't have author, but that's okay because author is optional. If you were to say const missing book equals and then an object had an author without pages, then you'd be in trouble because pages is required. And if you don't have pages, then it's the wrong type.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, if we put both, are you able to put both as optional?
Yeah. And this is fun. You can declare an object that has entirely optional properties, 1 of them, 2 of them, 20 of them. And then every object, everything that is not null or undefined is assignable to that object. Because you're just saying it's a shape and it can have any of these properties, but they're optional. So as long as you give it something that doesn't have a different type for one of those properties, if it's missing all of them, who cares? It's fine.
Okay. But this one did make a lot of sense. So this one I was like, cool. Yay. I didn't get super stuck on. Read only made a lot of sense. I liked the fact of really quick, I'll go through this in a second. Parasocial asks, Josh, what's your take on pages ? I'm just gonna put it on the screen instead of having to read it on this.
Great question.
What's your take?
I also love the JavaScript. What's that? Yeah, so those two are not the same. They're commonly used similarly, and they work similarly, but there are subtle differences. The first pages question mark string is saying you may have a pages property. If you have that pages property, which you don't have to, then it must be a string. Not string or undefined. If the property exists, it must be a string, which is different from saying you must always have a pages property, and then the value under that property is either string or undefined. And then, yes, that third one, pages question mark string or undefined, is saying you may have a pages property. If it exists, it may be either string or undefined. Now, TypeScript actually has a configuration option, which I can never remember the name. There it is, exact optional property types. I'll post that in the chat, which makes it a little more strict around this. Because most of the time, who gives a crap? Like either the property is there with a thing or it's undefined. Like, why do we care about this? But there are some cases where people really want to be strict about whether the property exists. Because there is a difference between a property existing and having an undefined value versus a property not existing at all on an object. Does that make sense and answer the question that we were going for? I'm also asking you, Jen, because this is your stream and I want to make sure that you're feeling good about all this.
It makes enough sense, but again, it's going to be this. One thing I love about all of these is it's something that I can go back and reference when that knowledge builds, because something that may go over my head to not force learning that one part. And cool, you answered Kevin's question as well, which I'm going to put it on screen just so that if people don't have access to the chat, they can see this. How zone property works differently between the two, right? And yeah, also in the in operator. Yay. All right, cool. And so what was I going to go through on this one? I'm thinking, seeing what. I think with this one, it made a lot of sense. And I like that you called out that it doesn't have to be read only for the entire part of it, for the entire object.
Cool.
And I think that's...
Yeah, it's just saying any place where you told me that the type I care about is this page thingy, I'm not allowed to touch text. Wherever it came from, I don't know. But specifically here, don't modify text.
Cool. Anything that we need to go through separately here that you'd want to call out?
There's another typo. You named from page-ish to messenger-ish. Really annoying me. The editing process was crap towards the end on my end. I just rushed through it and didn't get a lot of proofreading done. So that was unfortunate. This is what happens when you talk to an author. They just like nitpick their material aggressively. But yeah, honestly, most of this chapter is just expressing different ways you can declare different things on properties or methods of object types with interfaces or type aliases. Like it's just a bunch of cool facts, really, for the most part.
And I dig that. So thank you. There was something that was part of functions and methods. Because you can provide... TypeScript provides the two ways of declaring interface members as functions with the method and property. There This is the only thing I hate about like going through these later on is I'm like, I had a question about it, but I didn't write it down. So therefore that doesn't help.
Thought you have a fancy highlighting situation to write down things.
I know. But I was like, oh, I'll remember. No, I don't. It's fine. It's fine. How would you briefly tell us about this?
Oh boy. See, Jen, this is one of the reasons why I don't recommend people learn TypeScript and JavaScript at the same time, because this relies on a core JavaScript fundamental thing, which is that there's a difference, sort of, kind of, subtle differences, between the two different ways to declare a thing, a field on an object that can be called like a function. One is a method declaration, which is like the class style. There's actually like some syntax sugar that you can use that makes this definition blurry, but generally the idea is if you have a prototype-based instance of a class, the method is declared on the class, not the instance. And then separately from that, there's the property approach, which is a property, just like any other object property, and the value under that property just so happens to be a function. So if you look on the screen, it has both function types. Those are the two ways of declaring that syntax. The functional result is almost identical. It's a thing you can call by its name, and it's a function. But TypeScript lets you explicitly say which of the two ways JavaScript allows you to declare it that it was declared with. Yeah?
Yeah. I didn't realize I was muted. I mean, I was just shaking my head, but I was also like, yeah, okay. You know, come on, Josh. You just have to like, nobody wants to be in my head. Just like that would be very confusing for everyone. So, but sometimes I do wish that they could. And I do get the fact, and I appreciate the call out on like these are things that knowing JavaScript beforehand would help. There haven't, I feel like there's been a few, but not as many as I would have thought.
Yeah. I think it's just enough to be annoying, but not enough to block you.
Yeah. Okay. And then this is where I didn't get to.
Oh yeah.
So what are call signatures? Because okay, apparently I can't spell obvious. Obvious.
It looks right.
Is it? Is that actually how you spell it? I'll be shocked.
Yeah. OBVIOU. Yeah. So what is a signature? For functions. A signature is a description of how something can be used. A call signature is a description of how something can be called. So I say that explicitly because there are actually two types of signatures that we refer to in this chapter. We talk about call signatures, and later we'll talk about index signatures. So before we get to index signatures, let's just talk about call signatures. A call signature describes how an object or a thing of value, a shape, can be called like a function. For example, interface call signature says, this is a shape, and it can be called in this way. Pass it an input string, it gives back number. Functionally, that's basically the same as type function alias. The difference is the interface form allows you to add other properties onto it. Because it's really common in JavaScript for people to say, like, make a function, then manually assign, like, version equals 2 or whatever, like random arbitrary properties on it. So TypeScript allows you to declare that an interface allows properties that are whatever, properties, functions, methods, whatever, and then also that the object itself is a function that can be called in at least one particular way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And it also I'm currently stuck on not on the fact of like what you just explained, but the fact that I'm going through so many names in my head for bumpy lumps because I'm like, wait, that's not it. But it's not Dreg. And it's not Tyler. Dude, what's your name? Because I'm spacing it because there's too many names.
Is it Lumpy Space Princess? Is this a
Alex? Yes. He's on our D&D, not D&D, The Expanse, when we play The Expanse. But his username says one thing, and then he has two names in The Expanse, and then I just like couldn't get to their real name. Because that's what happens when you learn their name in the game first. Anyway, thank you, Roy, for that. And Alex, what do you like about call signatures? I'm curious. That was the whole thing to get to that question. Yes. And is there
The perps.
that is fair. That is fair. Y'all, let's take a brief yay, thank you for the follow. Let's take a brief break because I think y'all will be amused by this. So if I take my hair down, you can see that I have purple hair. And I am quite a goofy human in general. And then if you take my character, which I will also link in here so that way y'all can go follow Jacob, because you should in general. But I don't look like me. I look like a completely different person, and I'm really mean.
That's interesting.
It is. Oh, this one won't work. Share screen. Go to this one. Go to this one. That's me.
Oh my god, that's so different.
And I'm a meanie poo poo head who's really mean to everybody. That is me. Ha!
Gamora from Avengers, but with hair vibes. The face things.
I'm a belter from The Expanse. A mean belter. Well, she's not mean. She's just like she's not. She's got a lot going on in life. Is the best way to say it. She's got a lot going on.
Love it.
But yes, she is mean. She is mean. And it's so funny because they'll be laughing about stuff and I can't laugh. I have this very serious face. And I gotta sit differently. Anyway, that is the we don't need to go off on, we don't need to expand on The Expanse. I'll talk about it nonstop. So let me go back to the book. But yes, this is why I couldn't come up with Alex's name. Because too many names to go. But Alex, thank you, because you're a sucker for predictability. I think that's a good way of saying it.
It's a good value prop in general with TypeScript, call signatures, and other parts.
Yeah, very true. Very true. All right, so the next one that you were going to talk about, which you said that you're like, there's two types of signatures, but now we have index signatures.
Yeah. Please call explain. Signature describes how a thing can be called, like a function. Which, by the way, if you ever see an error message like has no call signatures, that's because TypeScript's telling you it can't be called like a function. An index signature describes how you can index into it or look up properties dynamically. We've seen this very often in JavaScript code where someone will just make an object and then randomly assign properties to it, like word counts, let's say, from the screen is a good example of that, where I'm just putting whatever strings or whatever properties I want, counts.apple, counts.banana, counts.cherry. And TypeScript is being told by us, well, let me do whatever I want, whatever keys, and as long as the value is a number, I'm okay with it. So that's an index signature. So you're just strongly typing what the keys and the values are, not what the types of the keys and the values, not what the specific keys are. Does that track seem reasonable?
Yeah. That one seems, I don't know. It clicks a little more, but they both click. It's cool. Yeah.
They're not big concepts.
No.
They're regardless of whether they click or not, there is not a lot of stuff to click with it. It's just, okay, this describes how you call it. That one describes how you index into it. The tricky thing actually comes from the latter, which is one of the fun little places where TypeScript is not truly type safe. The type system is more of a heuristic. Because let's say, and I'm just looking at the second example, dates by name. Let's say you declare an index signature, And in doing so, you said this object, any key is going to give whatever, a date value. And then TypeScript is okay with you looking up any key on the object because you said any key in the universe. Literally every possible string one could concoct in JavaScript gives me back whatever the value is. So that's not type safe. Much like how arrays, you can like access things out of bounds, and TypeScript's like, okay, this is fine by the default compiler options. This is, well, you told me it has the infinite set of strings as keys, so I'll just go with that. Thoughts?
Interesting. I think that's alluding to the mixing properties and index signatures too. But it also makes me want to ask you, why would you not do any when you start with anything TypeScript as your type?
You can think of JavaScript as just TypeScript with a lot of any's. Everything is any. And then as you onboard to TypeScript, you're replacing those any's with better things. So yeah, this is better than an any, but maybe most of the time using an index signature is not what you want, especially now that it's post 2015, and we have things like map and set built into JavaScript that are built for these operations of like getting arbitrary properties. So yeah, this is not ideal, but it's better than YOLO any. Let me do whatever I want. Thoughts?
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. And I like that explanation. Anything else? Is there anything you specifically want to cover in the mixing properties and index signatures?
Yeah, I found it difficult to write this part because it's actually not that big of a concept, but I found it to be tricky personally. When you have an object like at the bottom of your screen, historical novels, hi Aaron, all you're saying here is two things. One, any key that's a string gives me back a number. And also, I specifically know that I have Orinoco, the key. Like that must exist. So if I create an object that's missing that, let's say it only has Outlander, TypeScript would yell at me because although you said that any key in the universe is allowed to exist, you've also said that specifically that key must exist. Thoughts?
I like that. And also, Kitty.
Yeah, Jerry's hiding. He's been all over me today. It's been nice.
Hi, Jerry. Jerry, you're cute. Is he a full black cat?
He's got a little bit of gray on the chest. He and his brother.
Oh.
We think brother. We think he has ADHD because he gets very restless and very attention all over the place. It's really cute.
I like what Roy said of they want a TypeScript book that is one page, use any for everything, K, thanks, K, bye. Just for the meeting.
Self-publish.
But Roy, I see a future in writing for you and teaching. Roy's a great teacher and doesn't give me the answers. I get very stuck and then I just want to yell at him. Thank you, Roy. Okay. So this part does make sense. And then, we got numeric index signatures. Numeric ones.
Yeah. Fun fact, in JavaScript, so this is a JavaScript thing that TypeScript has to let us represent. Whenever you create an object and then ask for a dynamic property, like whatever the thing is, array index of some variable, that property can be anything and it gets coerced or turned into a string. I forget the technical term. There's like a fancy algorithm. So you can use numbers. So like this mixes numbers and strings thing is totally fine in JavaScript land. So now TypeScript index signatures can say not just iString, but also iNumber. That's why they have the type annotation there. It's not just I, because it could be string or number. And number must be more specific than string because numbers keys get turned into string keys anyway. Which again is a JavaScript thing, not a TypeScript thing.
I appreciate the clarification. Oh.
Did you hear that?
Jerry agrees.
Yes, he does.
This is the fun part about live streaming or calls or doing anything is you will probably have animals in the background. It is
Good way to live.
the best. Okay. Nested interfaces, which I feel like we kind of talked about earlier because you could, in the README part, because you could have things nested but not have the same requirements.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there a big difference in this area?
No, just it's the same stuff that you went over back in chapter 4 with objects, where you can nest things. An object can have a property that's another object. And here, in addition to being able to represent as like an object literal, you can alternately call it an interface. So, yay.
This may be a very apparent answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Can you nest object or interface? Like, can you switch back and forth?
You can mix and match, yeah. Nothing
Okay,
stops
thank
you.
you.
I also really like the way you asked that. A lot of people say phrases like, this is a dumb question, and I really don't like that because I don't like encouraging the concept of questions being dumb. Because there are, of course, very few dumb questions. There are dumb questions, it's just very, very few of them. And no one who's concerned about asking a dumb question has ever actually asked a dumb question in my experience. So this might be apparent. I really like as a phrase because to me, the person who wrote the book, it might be apparent. But to you, someone who's just like reading it now, learning, it may not be so apparent. So yeah, +1. I like that.
Thank you. I will say I learned that from someone at Cloud Next last week when I'm learning. I had questions about everything, and they were asking people that came up to the booth or getting to know them of like, this may be your parent, or this may be something that I'm not seeing right now. And I'm like, that's a great way of asking it because it may not be apparent to everybody. Oh, extensions.
Woo!
What big cool news do you have about adding to extensions?
Again, the same as what you saw before, just with a different keyword.
Yes.
It's like an intersection, but differently named. Otherwise, it's basically the same.
So basically, I'm hearing that this was a great week to have a shorter episode, even though I had to delay it a day.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Nice. Overridden. I don't know if we've talked about this. Oh, well, it does say new. In case anyone's curious, the stuff that I have, oops, as I hit my mic, this right here is like notes of, is this a new concept or not? And apparently this is new, so no wonder I had no idea about overridden properties. What is this?
Well, glad you asked. You can make things more specific in the derived or extending interface. For example, on the screen, we see with non-nullable name, which extends with nullable name. In the extended one, the one that extends, name is string. So anything that's typed with non-nullable name is string, not string or null. So we are taking in the with nullable name interface and like getting a more specific, more narrow version of it, which seems kind of silly here because they all have the same property. Why would you just make a new interface? But like if the base interface with nullable name had other things on it, it would still be really useful to be able to extend it, but then say that my name is more specific, more narrow. Does that make sense? Is that reasonable to you?
Yes. I'm
Yes?
going back to because we're talking about extensions. And this is something that with coding in general, of like extensions to narrow things.
Yes. Set theory is weird. This like the terminology is based on set theory. You are extending the interface, so it's like a new thing, and you can add properties to make it bigger. You can also narrow existing properties, and in that way make it smaller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. That's Why I'm like, it makes sense, but it doesn't make sense based on words that I've learned so far. So,
Words.
in general, not even. But what did you say this is based off of that I should go look
Ooh.
up?
You don't have to. Set theory from like mathematics. So it's like a lot of TypeScript actually comes, a lot of type systems, in fact, come down to set theory of like what are the set of allowed things. So like a union type, the concept of a union comes from set theory. It's two unions. You union them together. I don't introduce set theory. I don't think I ever actually mention it in the book. Yeah, I don't, because most people don't feel particularly comfortable diving into mathematical principles. But that is like a root of where a lot of this comes from. So if you do have like an affinity or prior experience or just an enjoyment of math, like that area of math, it can be very useful for understanding TypeScript types.
We also have Laura, and I haven't had Laura on the show for forever. It's been crazy. She was a math professor.
Oh yeah, Laura would love
Just
this
like,
stuff.
yeah, we could just be like, yo, Laura, you want to come on and talk about set theory? And all right, Roy, think of extending the functionality of an interface versus extending the quantity of what's in the interface. And Alex is saying they like to think of it as extending, like pulling out of the shapes, extending apart rather than making the original part bigger.
It's always fun seeing how people interpret these different things. Everyone has like a different personal thing that works for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
cool stuff.
And I appreciate everybody sharing because it's like, yeah, this is one thing about learning that if like you might have to hear it 7 times from 3 different people and 4 different ways for it to finally make sense.
Roy, we're all right here. All of us.
Different ways to make it click.
Everywhere.
Ooh, extending multiple interfaces is extending interfaces multiple times.
We've extended the extending, yes.
Okay. So that one seems pretty self-explanatory. But what about interface merging?
Yes, this is new. Hi, learner. Good to see you.
It's learner.
Yeah, interface merging is the big thing, like the big thing that interfaces can do that object types can't, aliased object types. Now, whether you want them to do this is separate from the question of whether they can do this thing.
Okay.
But if you declare 2 interfaces near each other in the same area and they have the same name, it's as if you just declared one big interface with all the things from both of them. They merge together.
Mm.
To some people, that sounds horrifying. And in a way, it is horrifying because what if you like typoed? Why would it let you do that? That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually really useful because in JavaScript land, because JavaScript is weird and wacky, people actually do often merge together their things and an existing type. For example, the global window or global this in different environments. People are constantly adding crap to the window, whether it's good stuff like new polyfills for new APIs, or if it's bad things like window.myCount equals 0 or whatever. So there's a global interface window that you can then also extend by saying interface window myCount number.
Okay.
And this is explicitly a thing that interfaces are used for. This is like why many people use interfaces, even if they wouldn't prefer them normally, because they have to. Thoughts?
Currently swirling around the idea of how someone may learn if that they have objects, even though they may want interfaces to merge, like how someone would maybe be able to identify that to get it to work that way if they're newer.
This is not a common thing. If you are newer to TypeScript, you can probably just ignore it until it becomes necessary. If you are newer to JavaScript, definitely ignore it. I'd say there are very few but very distinct and visible cases where this is useful. The most common one, the only one that I've actually got a memory of using this past year, is process.env in Node, where in Node.js, you can set process environment variables and then run your script, and then the global process.env is an object with all those environment variables. And sometimes you want to say, like, okay, I know the script will always run with some global process and variables, so you can extend, you can merge. I forget the name of the interface you use for process.env. So that's like a case where the built-in types are not sufficient to describe the built-in global objects. Or in this case, the things that are declared in @type/node, the type definitions for Node.js. Thoughts?
That does make sense. And I can see, based on that example, why a newbie wouldn't be anywhere near that. Now, I like Learner just said, like, interfaces versus types are something that they feel confused. And I know we've been talking about this a bit, but I'm curious if you could summarize that part.
Yeah, happy to. It's been a little while. It's been like, what, half an hour on the screen? An hour. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's in the beginning of the chapter. And there are like
We'll
a
go
million
there so we
articles
have
online.
reference.
Yeah, there are a lot of different resources explaining this in slightly and sometimes maybe in different ways. But basically, there are very few interface versus type differences. They're almost the exact same. What's on the screen now, good, yes, +1 to showing this. The two are the same, basically. Type poet versus interface poet. So for most of the time, not all, but most of the time, it's really just whatever you like the looks of more. Or maybe like the underlying principles that you prefer. So don't be confused. They're the same. Now, there are some differences, which the chapter does mention. The main thing that interfaces can do that object type aliases can't is merge, which we were just discussing. If you have two interfaces, the same name and the same like scope area, they just merge together. Object type aliases, on the other hand, can do unions, which interfaces cannot. Interfaces, there's no way to represent a union, like string or a number. That's a type alias thing. That's not an interface. Now, there are other like subtle, small differences. Later in the book, we'll get into like generics and like fancy types, which lean much more towards type aliases, but like that's later. It used to be the case, lastly, that object type aliases tended to be slower for TypeScript to compute and have worse error messages or type errors when something was mismatched. Nowadays, that's like not really the case. I think there might be still edge cases, but like it's really hard to find them. So for the most part, it's just, they're the same, basically.
I like it. Okay. Are member naming conflicts just like if they can't merge, like or when you don't want them to merge?
Yeah, if they can't. If you've declared this, whatever, merge properties interface twice, and in one thing you said that different returns, takes in a string, and the other one you said different takes in a number, well, what is TypeScript supposed to do with this information? It's blatantly contradictory. So it gives you a type error saying, hey, if you declare two properties in the same named interface, if you want to merge them, they have to have the same type. Otherwise, I don't know what to do with this.
Got it.
It's like me telling you, my favorite color is blue, and then 2 minutes later saying, my favorite color is red. I've lied to you at least once. Maybe twice.
Or you're a Gemini and your truth changes.
My truth changes. True. TypeScript is definitely not. What zodiac sign your TypeScript?
Has someone done that yet? Like what zodiac sign each language would be? That would be great. That would be a great TikTok.
That way, probably. What?
That would be a great TikTok.
Now that we've gone through interface merging, we can finally understand the last bit of the chapter. Why are interfaces good drivers, Jen?
They're great at merging.
There you go.
Which I feel like a lot of drivers aren't. So that is a good thing.
God, been driving in New Jersey lately. These people are awful. TypeScript could be associated with the zodiac sign Virgo. Virgos are known for their attention to detail, precision, and practicality.
Oh.
Solid. JS is
I need to figure out what language is Gemini because that's probably the one I'd get along with best. Because our truth changes. Like, it's not like we're ever lying to people. Our truth changes.
I love it.
Because, like, it could be like, I am so convinced that this elephant is my favorite elephant of all time. And this is the best elephant. But then 5 minutes later, these elephants appear.
Ooh.
And therefore, this is my favorite elephant of all time. And then I'll forget about this elephant and see this elephant, and therefore it changes again. It's really annoying.
I love it.
And that does remind me, I don't think we've talked since I went to AWS Summit New York, and I survived New York.
Oh, yeah. New York. How did that go?
It was good. Alex came to come hang out at the meetup, and thank you. Next time to give Alex more of a heads up so he doesn't just have to go. You came from Connecticut. I said goodbye to a couch. What? Oh, I did say goodbye to a couch. I did do that. Yes, I did do that. Did I freeze or did he freeze? Who froze? I do remember that now. Oh, he froze. Okay. Oh, his Mac is randomly restarting, so we'll just remove him from screen so he's not stuck in that frozen spot. Yay, I'm glad it was fun. And yeah, Aaron, I forgot that I was so tired and did not want to move that I said goodbye to a couch. And it was pretty great. It was pretty great. Oh, I'm just replying to Josh in all caps. It's cool. I put ha ha ha. Okay. Learner, you can do the virtual conferences, but one day I bet you'll go to in-person conferences someday. Someday. But yes, New York was fun. I wanted to tell Josh about it because I survived. I took public transport into the city, and then I took an Uber back to the airport. It was like a 2-hour ride. It took forever to fly to JFK, to get to JFK to fly. And yeah. Well, while you're all here, and we'll see if Josh can rejoin, make sure that you hit follow, subscribe if you like, and, keep hanging out. And also, there's the thing. There is the link to open source Raid Guild, which is where you can come find out and hang out with the community, which I will link. If you want to know what's going on with Teach Gen Tech, come join here. There's its own little bubble. And hello again.
Hi. Sorry, I switched my sit-stand desk to sit from stand, and I forgot the little outlet at the bottom was loose, and it keeps jostling it out. So turned off my Mac. Sorry, how was New York? Did we already pass that point in conversation?
You just missed the fact that I said goodbye to a couch.
Oh.
Like, I realized my shoes were too small. Like, if you walk around a little bit in shoes, you may not realize that they're too small. Like, they probably fit really well. But if you walk around a ton, your feet swell. And I did not know that. I hadn't bought anything for all these trips. And my feet were in so much pain and so many blisters that I had to say goodbye to the couch that I was on because I was so sad I was leaving it because that meant more walking. So Aaron reminded me of that. Yeah. The subways were good. From JFK, I took the subway to my hotel in Times Square. And then I said, no more about this shenanigans. And I took a lift back to the airport when I had to leave. Aaron and Alex came to the open source data infrastructure meetup, which Aaron's going to talk on at one of them sometime soon, someday, or the Boston one. I need to play on the Boston one too. And I need to play it when I'll be back in New York. And I survived.
Good.
New York was the first one. So New York was the hardest one. Chicago was worse for other reasons. And then I just got back from San Francisco, which went really well. And I'm like, so there's progression of preparedness on these trips. And I have Denver in 2 weeks. And then San Jose the week after that. So
hell yeah. It's a good amount of tripping.
Yes. And I find out soon if I'm going to a conference in Portugal later this year. That's a big conference. And I'm hoping I am. I don't know yet.
Good luck. Oh, shout out in the chat, Aaron. Strange Loop's a great conference. I don't think I'm going this year, but I really like going there. I think I was there last year. Met a few cool people. Saw some awesome talks. They're really nice. Great time.
And y'all go follow. We'll also follow. We'll do Aaron, and then I gotta wait for a little bit. Aaron, when are you streaming today? This is a big reason, in case anybody's curious. Josh also streams on Tuesdays, and this is why I moved my stream earlier on Tuesdays. But yesterday just wasn't going to happen. I was so struggling. I wake up at 4 and start work at 5. I can handle that. That is routine. That is something I do. Waking up at 3 to be to work till at 4, it screwed up my entire day. I struggled so bad with it. So thank you. Okay, yes. Go follow Erin so we can watch her stream. And also go follow Josh because they're fun.
Yay.
I have to do the @ symbol. Your streams are fun. They're very, it's easy to ask you questions.
Thanks. That's the goal.
Oh, I have to wait another minute before I can shout you out. Yay! Learning, that's a big reason though. I was like, I might as well do it earlier because then other people can join. And Learner, you're regular. You count. So I'm glad. And then Erin and I had a big discussion on when she should stream. Because no matter what, when you make friends with streamers, you're gonna overlap with somebody. There's no way to not overlap. And
we have a weirdly small community. Programmer, streamer people in our space.
We do. But yes, it is a fun crowd, and you can always learn something. Erin. And anybody else that wants to get into live learning or streaming, I will share my talk because it will have, if you were to start doing this tomorrow, slide. Oh, I almost shouted out Erin again just because she just replied, and that's not what I'm trying to do. Erin, I already shouted you out. There we go. It finally worked. But yes. Yay. Awesome. Well, all right. So on that note, is there anything that I'm missing, Josh?
I'm scrolling back to the contents. Also finding people on Twitter. I don't think so. I think interfaces and classes are like the chill middle part of the book. Like you've absorbed a lot of information.
I was going to say classes. Classes is the next one, and I'm so not excited for classes.
I mean, I would just skip it, honestly, for you, because you would have to learn JavaScript classes, and I think that is the JavaScript feature that is most not intuitive from TypeScript.
Well, we could do our own separate. Maybe I'll try to have somebody come on and see if they can help me figure out what classes are and actually understand them.
Yeah.
Classes.
The nice thing about TypeScript in classes is that TypeScript adds very few things to them. There are like a couple of like weird things it adds that people don't often use. But like there are very few things. It's mostly about just like type declarations, like declaring what the type of the classes should be, as you would expect, based on literally everything else in the book. It's just around types.
Yeah.
The bad thing about the TypeScript class is that it's classes, and that's a controversial topic in JavaScript. Some people love them and use them for everything. Some people hate them and avoid them like the plague. I'm personally like closer to the avoid, but I don't avoid it like the plague. I just like only use it when it's really useful.
Who do we know that loves classes? I need to find them, and I will make a tweet later. And please retweet and tag people that you think love classes and would like to teach about them, because I want to punch them in the face. And you did say that we could skip this chapter, but I feel like it's one of those things that I'm going to have to learn it at some point.
Okay.
Even though
unclear. I would
not
say I would prefer to skip it, but like I understand if you want to go through, that makes sense. Angular in particular, out of the like the big common frameworks, is like a big class proponent and like has a lot of good reasons going for using classes. So if you know anyone in like the Angular-y areas, or like the I think Vue has like class syntaxes. That's still a thing people do. I haven't used Vue in forever.
I mean, we had Mishko on the show, but that was when he was doing more quick things. So it could be kind of weird to be like, hey, you want to come back on the show and teach about classes since you made Angular?
Yeah,
I mean,
that might be overkill for that, but it could do.
See if he says yes, just to see. I don't know. That could be kind of funny. But also at the same time, I'm like, probably should save that one for something more technical down the road. Because he was my 5th stream ever, and having to explain things without even knowing what Hacker News was probably painful enough.
It's good practice for him, though. I think anyone who's super like big experience, etc., should regularly, if possible, if they have time, do things with people who say don't yet know what Hacker News is. Like it's really, really useful for us to stay grounded. Us being like people who've been around in the industry for a while, have like written a book or made a framework or whatever.
That's cool. Then I'm glad. It's definitely fun to have others on. So, all right. Well, on that note, I am going to rate us. And it looks like, let's see, Finite Singularity. I think, I've hung out with them before. I've seen some of their streams or somebody on one of their streams. So let's go say hi to them.
Let's do it.
And thank you, everyone, for joining today. And we will see you next week. Okay, I'll see you. We'll be rating Josh on Tuesdays is the goal. So it'll be like a double feature.
Okay.
All right. See y'all next week.